Well, welcome to another episode of Public Works TV. I'm Shannon Austin, and today we're talking everything snow and potholes. And we are excited to have the most popular guy in Sioux Falls right now, Dustin Hanson, our street supervisor. Dustin, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and coming and talking to us on CityLink today.
You're very welcome.
So we're going to start the conversation with snow, and then we'll finish our conversation with potholes, two very hot topics that are in Sioux Falls right now. So tell us overall so far, from beginning of our first snowfall in fall of 2022 to today, how many inches of snow have we actually had?
We're probably pushing that close to that 50-inch mark. I think technically we're up almost around 45 inches of snow. So
Okay.
that how that compares to an average snowfall. Average snowfall is about 40 to 41 inches.
Oh.
And so we pretty much got our allotment in about a month time frame. And so it's quite a bit of snow to deal with.
So I think a lot of people probably don't realize that we're actually average, but it's all came in at one time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how did that compare with the snowfall of last year, then of like 2021 and 2022?
Well, last year was very dry, so we had, I think, close to 17 inches for our winter season. So we're at triple, and again, with only getting that 45 inches in just a few weeks.
Right. So as you drive down, well, at least I'll use my street. As you drive down my street, it's very visible that there's just, of course, snow everywhere. How difficult is it for your team to move that much snow when there's already a base, 10 inches or whatever? How difficult is it to actually work in the neighborhoods when there's so much snow and not enough space to move it?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Obviously, we're running big machines. It's not the size of a car coming
Right.
down those streets, and we've got two of those machines that will work on that street to plow that snow. But the more and more snow we get, it's harder to stack in the boulevards. Technically we can only stack about 24 to 28 inches high, and plus we have to go over the curb if we can get that close. But the more snow we get, the farther we get out from that curb. The snow gates are some of that cause because we have to carry so much snow underneath the motor grader, and we have to be discharging that snow into the boulevard constantly and not into driveways.
So if you can only stack that 24 to 36, I bet a lot of people don't realize that because they think you can just keep stacking in the boulevard. So, but you're actually using the parking lanes then, right, for the stacking of the snow?
Yeah, we're using a little bit of that gutter pan and then part of the street to stack some of that snow because if we really pushed hard to push that into the boulevard, we push a lot into the driveway. And that snow gate, depending on the number of inches, can hold some of that snow back underneath the motor grader, and it needs to really discharge into that boulevard because we have to use the snow gates, and we cannot put all that snow in somebody's driveway.
So with the snow that we had with the last big storm, how difficult was it to use the snow gates?
It was fairly difficult. I mean, they worked fairly well, but again, our operators are kind of trained to kind of stay away from the curb a little bit once we get that many inches of snow because they know they have to discharge it somewhere and not into the driveways. So
talk to me a little bit about when you're away from the curb. Of course, you have the inlets, you have the fire hydrants, you have the mailboxes. Talk to me a little bit about that process on the responsibilities then of, as me as a homeowner, what is my responsibility on that clearing snow then?
Yep, as a homeowner in Sioux Falls, it's your responsibility to clear 3 foot around a fire hydrant if you have a fire hydrant on your property. Okay. And then your mailbox for the mail carrier to put mail in there. So, of course, it can be difficult with that much snow into the gutter pan, but it is your responsibility as a homeowner to clear the snow out from around your mailbox.
So the post office, do you work at all with the post office, or is it just mainly if the postman can't get to your mailbox, they just won't deliver mail, I assume?
That's
right?
correct. We work with them a little bit, try to get some messaging out, but not too much. Again, it's on the homeowner to clear around their mailbox. Okay. And we'll go back out, and if we've left a lot of snow in that street, a lot of times sometimes those are on our list to pick the snow back up, but we will go back out potentially and plow some of that snow back.
Okay. So I have seen some folks in my neighborhood that when they're clearing their driveway or clearing their sidewalk, they're actually blowing snow into the street, which that is not allowed, correct?
Nope, that's against city ordinance to put snow back into the street. Again, because that's more snow that we've got to find to put in the boulevard. The best place for that snow to be is on your property. If you if you can put it on your property. I know there's little space sometimes on properties, but again, that's just something that more snow that we got to put into a boulevard that's already full.
Right. So how has the overall process been going with this last big storm of, I know your teams have been working overtime. Are you still picking up snow, or is picking up snow a continual effort until like the next snowfall? Or what do you guys do then when the snow event is actually over?
Well, we haven't seen an end this year, it seems like. Basically, we've been picking up snow. We've had a couple snow events since the big one on New Year's. We've had a couple other snow events that we've had to battle, but our team just pivots, changes directions, goes out and plows that event, and then they come right back to picking up snow. Typically, we wouldn't do that. We would do our normal pickups, and we would go back into fixing potholes or other winter maintenance items. But this year, seems like it's been constant snow pickup.
So I've noticed that after the event had happened, then like in the last couple weeks or so, you've gone to those secondary routes and have pulled the snow in. Do you remember a time when we've done that before? Do you guys do that every year? We just don't really notice it.
We don't do it every year.
Okay.
No, our typical, we do our downtown pickup. Anytime we call a snow alert, we pick up downtown, and then we go into areas that have back of curb sidewalks.
Okay.
So typically when we're pushing snow on our emergency routes, we push that snow onto those back of curb sidewalks. Crews will go back out after we get done plowing residentials, pull that off of the curb. Sometimes they'll tuck it back into the gutter pan, but a lot of times we'll have to go back and actually pick that up. And then that's pretty much the end of the snow event. But with this much snow, we've got to make additional capacity in those boulevards. And we've pretty much picked up all of the emergency routes in Sioux Falls, and now we're working on secondary routes.
Wow. So I know that your team works very closely with the National Weather Service. Have they given you an outlook from February, March, and April? Are we expecting more snow? Do they give you any indication?
A little bit. It looks like we're kind of equal chances of above or below normal precip, and that's kind of what we were seeing going into this winter.
Sure.
So maybe not what we were hoping for, but that's kind of what it looks like the next 90 days. Looks like that. Kind of that upper pressure is kind of going to go more north of us, is what it looks like, and temperatures seem to be kind of more mild or moderate. So
explain then, does your approach to a snow alert, it has to be different from a snow alert in November, December, January to a snow alert in February, March, or April, just because typically of the temperatures, right? I mean, how do you determine when to let it sit on the street and melt, and how do you determine when to actually plow it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Obviously, if you're in December and it's going to be 10 degrees or less, and we hit that 3 to 4 inch mark, we're going to be plowing the whole city.
Okay.
And there could be a thing where if we get 4 inches, but then they're calling for another 2 inches like 2 days later. We may say, okay, let's just wait till that next front comes in, and then we'll plow the whole city. If we get later, towards closer to spring, and we can kind of see maybe those 40, 50 degree days, we may not plow a 4 or 5 inch snow across the city. We'll always plow those emergency routes and secondary routes, but we may not go into those residential streets just because Mother Nature will help us out by melting that, and we don't have to spend the resources to clean it up.
Okay, so that makes sense. So then, one thing as a driver, I know that when we didn't have a larger event, your team would go out and pre-treat the street with some type of chemical, and sometimes that chemical seems like it's a little slipperier. What is that treatment, and kind of explain when you use that chemical versus when you just plow?
Yep, so about 3 years ago we started kind of making salt brine, which is basically 80% water, about 20% salt. and it's a liquid that we put down before an event. But there's a lot of variables that we have to have go into it. If it's going to rain before the event, we don't put it down because it's just going to wash it away.
Sure.
But if we're expecting like an inch or maybe some icing, we'll go around and pre-treat some of those emergency routes, and it's a salt brine that goes on the pavement and then it dries up. But then as we get moisture coming down, it actually activates it, gives us some time so we have to go out right away and treat with our regular salt.
So is it effective at all different temperatures, or is it effective when it's not effective when it's so cold, like some of those really cold days that we had in December and January?
Yeah, we can use it to about 15 degrees or above, and so if we add in some more chemicals into it, like a calcium chloride, we could potentially go below 15 degrees. But right now, we've just been using the salt brine.
And so, have you had concerns from citizens that it does seem a little slipperier when you have that chemical on the snow, or you haven't really experienced it?
We haven't really experienced it too much. We really haven't used it a whole lot. Again, the conditions have to be right. If we have too much humidity before an event, we can't really put it down because then it'll pull more moisture down into the streets, and then it'll dilute that concentration.
Okay. Well, as we look forward to summer and spring first, a lot of that snow, of course, will be melting. And, of course, one of the responsibilities, again, to the homeowner is to clear those inlets. And so sometimes it's hard to get to that inlet because that snow is a little bit further away. But the drainage and the melt will eventually get to the inlet itself because it kind of works on its own. But anything that homeowners can do, I assume, is to get that path to the inlet is preferred?
Yeah, if you know where your inlet is, try to clear it as best as possible. If you don't, you can put in a ticket with us and we can come out and show you the location of it or clear it if there's way too much snow. And most inlets we've been finding this year are not frozen. They're just covered with snow. A lot of the melt that we've seen in the last few days is getting underneath the snow and getting to those inlets.
Okay. And one of the features, as we kind of close on the snow side of it, one of the features I noticed is that you have a new app where it kind of says that the snow alert is 10% done, the snow alert is 50% done. So what is all that about?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We actually kind of put out a map, I think about 2 years ago, for the citizens to go on and check, but it wasn't real live time. It was several hours before it was updated, but now we actually use our automatic vehicle locators in our equipment to basically send that information back to this mapping. It's still under construction, we're still testing it out, but it actually takes the number of passes that a motor grader or a snowplow goes down your street and then comes back and says, okay, if I made 4 passes, I've completed the street. And it'll update that map and say it's completed. And so there'll be a percentage on there. So it'll be a good way for citizens to go on there and actually see when their street was done or when potentially the upcoming when it's going to be done.
Very good.
So it's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah. So you guys, do you utilize the cameras that our traffic operations team has at all these different intersections? Do you utilize those cameras then that are all over the city for your snow operations also?
Yep, absolutely. So during an event, typically, obviously, they're mainly just on the emergency routes, and we're looking at those just to kind of look at intersections. If the intersections are starting to get icy, more snow buildup, and we may potentially kind of divert our team to get to those intersections or main streets to plow or treat a little bit more.
Yeah, those cameras are wonderful, and it's great that they're used by so many different departments within the Sioux Falls area. Well, is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers on the snow season for 2022 and 2023? I
would say we've been talking about patience, and hopefully we get these warmer days kind of continue. We get a lot of melt. Obviously spring is right around the corner. Right. But we potentially still could have 2 months left of winter. So just kind of be prepared for that. But let's hope we've got warmer days ahead.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to come back and talk about potholes next.
The City of Sioux Falls has an easy way for you to help your community. Simply download the City of Sioux Falls mobile app. The app can be used to ask a question or to report a variety of nuisances like potholes, graffiti, streetlights not working, abandoned vehicles, and more. You can even upload a photo with your report. Every report is immediately routed to the appropriate team so they can quickly respond. In addition to tracking your reports, the app allows you to view reports submitted by other users and learn when they've been resolved. Go to the App Store or Google Play stores and download the City of Sioux Falls app today.
Well, welcome back. We are talking to Dustin Hanson about snow, and now we're going to go immediately into construction season and potholes. So, Dustin, of course, with our snow operations and our snow season, the snow and all of the cold weather and warming weather plays havoc on our city streets, both asphalt and concrete. And for some of those viewers who don't understand the schematics of how a pothole forms, just give our viewers just a brief overview of what's actually going on there.
Yeah, so Sioux Falls is not immune to potholes, just like any other city, in the northern climate. Other cities have them, but it's all what's going on underneath, and then the temperatures, the moisture. Basically, it's the worst for potholes is a freeze-thaw cycle that if you go right below freezing, right above, back and forth, and if you got moisture underneath your roads, which will get through cracks that naturally happen in concrete or asphalt pavement, that moisture gets under there and it freezes and thaws and it creates a void underneath that pavement. And as traffic comes across, it hits that void, potentially can make more cracking, that asphalt or concrete to crumble. That will eventually come out, and then you get the pothole.
Right. So is this year worse than what we've seen in years past, or is it pretty normal with the type of snow that we've had?
I would say it's probably pretty normal with the amount of moisture and the temperature variations. Last year, actually the last couple of years, we've been fairly dry and haven't had a lot of moisture in the winter. So we really didn't see these high numbers, but anytime you get this much moisture, freeze-thaw cycles, you're going to see a number of potholes that pop up.
So then, how do you fix them? Because in the summertime we have the nice heat to have the hot mix. How do you fix these potholes? Is it temporarily fixed until we get the summer, and then you go back and fix them? Or explain that process.
Yep. So to fill a pothole, really anything is temporary. Even when we use the hot mix in the summer, we use a cold mix in the wintertime. Okay. But we're fighting the temperatures, we're fighting the moisture, and a lot of times that material will come back out. But we've got to fill it with something. So we use a couple different types of cold mix. We use one that has a little bit more oil in it to kind of keep that water off of it. We use a natural asphalt out of Texas. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's a quick fix. And again, it kind of depends on how much moisture is in that hole, if we can dry it out to fix it. And then we actually also use recycled asphalt that might be left over from some of our jobs during the summer. That works fairly well, but it actually will come out in bigger chunks. And so we don't really like to use that as much because we don't want to damage vehicles or anything like that when it comes out, but we will use it in bigger patches.
So from your experience, are there more potholes in asphalt streets or concrete streets, or is it because we have less concrete and more asphalt, it's about the same, or what's your opinion on that?
This year we're probably seeing a little bit more in our concrete streets. Okay. Some of those are getting tired, so we're seeing a little bit more in those. We've over the last few years we've kind of really increased our asphalt maintenance program to where we're trying to get ahead of those before they even form to be a pothole. So I think that's helped, but a lot of times we don't see them because they're covered with snow and ice on the residential streets, so we may not see them until we get a full melt.
So we have to wait.
We have to wait.
Very good. So if a citizen sees a pothole or feels a pothole, what is their how do they let us know then if there's potholes on their daily commutes?
Yeah, so we have the app, the Sioux Falls One Lake app, that they can report it, and a location, is a description of the pothole. Obviously, don't do it while you're driving. Right. Pull over once you get to work or home. Remember where that was, because it's really nice if we can have an address that's tied to that pothole, so our crews can go directly out to that, and you can still call the pothole hotline as well and report it.
So do you have two crews working, one on snow operations and one on pothole, or everybody on snow goes to pothole until it snows again? Or how do you manage your crews?
It just depends. I mean, obviously when we're in an event and we're clearing snow, if we're in a snow alert, we're 100% focused on that snow alert. Okay. But once we get done, then we start to kind of carve off resources to, kind of attack those potholes. We're currently running about 4 to 5 crews of potholes. We also have crews still picking up snow.
Wow. So, and are those 12-hour shifts of those crews, or how does that work?
Luckily, we're back to 8. Okay, good. So we were on 12s for several weeks, I think 7 to 8 weeks. So they're back to 8 hours, but that could quickly change as the weather changes.
So just a snapshot in time, how many potholes complaints have you received as of mid-February?
Actually, we'll go back to January 1st. So we have a little over 600 requests that have came into our One Lake app.
And if you compare that to other years, is it pretty comparable?
I would say we're kind of trending on the higher side, but
Okay.
it's pretty comparable to a January, February. We've been averaging about 3,500 requests a year.
Okay.
But again, the last 2 years have been dry.
Right.
In 2019, we had about almost 7,000 requests for the total year.
Wow.
So hopefully we don't get that high this year. And the teams, they're attacking them well and getting them filled. So
2019 was when we had all of the water and a lot of the flooding. So that's interesting comparison right there.
Yep. We didn't have I think we had about the same amount of snow, but the winter just seemed like we had event after event after event. So
very good. Well, so looking forward then past the pothole repair in the spring. So our summer is stacking up to be pretty eventful then with just repairing our concrete and asphalt streets.
Yep.
Then. Yeah. So certainly, do you still have the same amount of crews working in the summer months, or do you kind of focus your attention on something else in the summer months rather than on just potholes?
Yes, we have numerous programs. Obviously, when we do snow, we actually pull employees from other public works divisions and our parks department, and actually even our Sioux Falls Fire. We pull them to help us with snow. So we have a lot less employees to do our summer activities, but our crews do full overlays, completely tear out streets. We do a lot of asphalt repairs, and this really helps with kind of cutting down on those pothole numbers. We'll actually go out before the summer, identify areas across the city that we know they're going to turn into a pothole eventually, or maybe it was numerous times filled as a pothole. We've got 3 crews doing that. We maintain gravel roads across the city, service cuts, and we do street sweeping as well. We have several crews that do that the entire summer.
So you guys are busy all the time.
We never have a slow time. No slow time.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been so helpful. Is there anything else about potholes that you'd like to tell our citizens about?
Just say if you come upon, obviously avoid it, but report it.
Okay.
That way our team can quickly get out there and get it repaired as quickly as possible.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, that does it for this episode of Public Works TV. We have so much of this information on our SiouxFalls.org website. So please, if you don't know where to turn, go to SiouxFalls.org. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the streets.